Imadu upon you, I stand and face Jerusalem. The blessing of the day of Judas. Barakata Yahweh, Hashem, Yahweh Shah, Asherah, Nathanawa, Hayawam, Yahweh, Hashamalam, Thawada, blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shah, that gives to us the day of Judas. Thank you, so be it. Taha'ayim, Asherayim, Psalm 121. Anya Harayim, Ayanyam Ya, Oh, Hariam, Mayan, Yabu'a, Isaiah, Isaiah, Yabu'a, Mayahawa, Shai, Shamayim, Wa'arataza, La'a, Yathan, Lamawat, Regalia, Yala'a, Yanawam, Shashamar, Hana, La'a, Yanawam, Wala'a, Yeshan, Shashawama, Yashua, Yahweh, Shemaya, Yahweh, Tazalia, Ayam, Ya, Yam, Ya, Yawamam, Mashamash, La'a, Makaya, Wairak, La'a, Baliyana, Yahweh, Yashimaya, Akal, Ra, Yashimah, Natasha, Yahweh, Yashimah, Hawalaka, Wa'aika, Ma'aika, Wa'ai, I will Bahasham Yahya. So what Psalms 121. I will lift up mine eyes into the hills, from whence cometh my help. My help cometh from the Lord, which made heaven and earth. He will not suffer thy foot to be moved. He that keepeth thee will not slumber. Behold, he that keepeth Israel shall neither slumber nor sleep. The Lord is thy keeper, the Lord is thy shade upon thy right hand. The sun shall not smite thee by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord shall preserve thee from all evil. He shall preserve thy soul. The Lord shall preserve thy going out and thy coming in from this time forth and even forevermore. Amen. Shema Yashrela, hear, O Israel. Shema Yashrela, Yahweh, Alahaya, Yahweh, Shema Yashrela, Yahweh, Alahaya, Yahweh, Shema Yashrela, Yahweh, Alahaya, Yahweh. Deuteronomy 4, hear, Israel, the Lord our power is one Lord. Tapala Yahweh, Abba Yanawa, Sheba Shemayim, Kodash, Hayah, Shamka, Yahweh, Malakothka, Zaba'ah, Tazawanka, Hayah, Aisha, Ba'aratizah, Ka, Bashemayim, Natalanawa, Lakam, Yowam, Za, Wasalakwana, Kababakna, Kasalakna, Kababakna, Wala'a, Habiyana, O, Nasayawan, Nabo, Hawashina, Mara, Kaya, Maka, Malakwath, Wahala, Parath, Ma'aiwalam, Amen. Matthew 6 and 9. After this manner, therefore, pray ye, Our Father which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come. Thy will be done in earth as it is in heaven. Give us this daily bread, give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever. Amen. Ha'ai Shara Matazabat, Ten Commandments. La'ah, Yahaya, Lakah, Alahayim, Akaryim, Al-Panya, La'ah, Tha'isha, Lakah, Pasol, Wala'ah, Tha'ibadam, La'ah, Thalakwaka, Shemwa, Yahweh, Alahayika, Lashua, Zakar, Ath, Hayawam, Ashbath, La Kadashwa, Kabad, Abyaka, Wa Amaka, La'ah, Zak, La'ah, Sam'at, La'ah, Saknab, La'ah, Sa'inab, Shakur, La'ah, Sakamad, Ko, Asherah, Lara'ayaka, Aman. Exodus 20 and 3. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. Thou shalt not make unto thee any graven image or any likeness of anything that is in the heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. Thou shalt not bow down thyself to them nor serve them. For I, the Lord thy God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children unto the third and fourth generation of them that hate me, and showing mercy unto thousands of them that love me and keep my commandments. Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain, for the Lord will not hold him guiltless that taketh his name in vain. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days shalt thou labor and do all thy work, but the seventh day is a Sabbath of the Lord thy God. In it thou shalt not do any work, thou, nor thy son, nor thy daughter, thy manservant, nor thy maidservant, nor thy cattle, nor thy stranger that is within thy gates. For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, the sea, and all that in them is, and rested the seventh day. Wherefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and hallowed it. Honor thy father and thy mother, that thy days may be long upon the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee. Thou shalt not kill, means murder. Thou shalt not commit adultery. Thou shalt not steal. Thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's house. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife, nor his manservant, nor his maidservant, nor his ox, nor his ass, nor anything that is thy neighbor's. Amen. Yeshua be seated. Barakatah Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Asherah, Manawa, Parya, Kapit, Wanam, Yahweh, Bahashem Shai, Ath, Ella. I bow upon your own, you're stand in Jerusalem. Opening prayer. Barakatah Yahweh, Hagadol, Rakuam, Mabiyah, Wanara'ah, one, Malak, Shaw, Shemayim, Baraka, Kayayam, Wagam, Mashiach, Mayahawa, Ahabna, Hafala, Yawaitazah, Yahawashai, Zakarnawa, Hawa, Tazawan, Anka, Yasha'ala, Isaiah, Bana, Wasa, Yasha'ala, Oh, Nanawa, Yum Yum, Aitha, Kayawamium, Makodam, Baba Kusha, Shalak, Mayaka Allah, Hatazawadak, Alahayim, La, Makanawa, Rahanawa, Rahimah, Baikwa, Shalak, Roka, Ausha, Nawa, Alamana, Ma, Sabawana, Wadai, Show, the Barga, Bahashim, Yahusha, Wada, Samya, Wa Iwalam, English translation for both prayers. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, that gives to us the fruit of the vine. Thank you, so be it, for Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai, with Israel. And the opening prayer. Blessed are you, Yahweh, the great, merciful, mighty, terrible, most high power, King of heaven and earth, and all things living. And also the anointed from Yahweh, our Lord, our friend, the wonderful counselor, Yahweh Shai. Remember us, Yahweh, favorably, your people Israel. Help us build and gather Israel. Most high, we beg you, right now, like the days of old. Please send Michael and the righteous powers to protect us, heal us, and watch over us. Mainly send the spirit of Yahweh Shai to us to teach us much wisdom, knowledge, and understanding of thy word. In the name of Yahweh Shai, thank you always and forever. So be it. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai that gives to us the law. Barakatah Yahweh, Hashem Yahweh Shai, Asherah, Letanah, HaRah. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai that gives us light to see. Barakatah Yahweh, Hashem Yahweh Shai, Asherah, Letanah, Oh, Nara Awah. Blessed are you, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shai that gives to us the rams whom to call the people. Barakatah Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Asherah, Letanah, Koran, Ha'ayah, La Korah, Ha'ain, Yeshua. right. Shalom, shalom. Happy day of Judas or Shalom Yahweh. This is the day that we honor Judas Maccabees that we read before in the scriptures, a day of honor, a day of tribute, not only to Judas Maccabees, but also to the Most High. Because we know even though Judas Maccabees is a vessel used by the Most High, ultimately is always the victory goes to the Most High. So we acknowledge, Judas Maccabees. We also acknowledge the Most High for the destruction of our enemies at that time, which was the Greeks, by the hand of a man, Nicanor. Sometimes you'll certain camps they'll put, the destruction of Nicanor, all right, giving credence and celebration to the downfall of our enemies at that time that was, having us in the straits, murdering us, defiling the temple, trying to desecrate the Most High's name by putting up abominations of altars and different things during that time. So, this day is kind of like, three-part almost, where you're giving, tribute and honor to a man by the name of Judas Maccabees and those that were with him, because he was just not by himself, but he was the captain of the host at that time, as well as the Most High power for deliverance on the destruction of Nicanor and the Greeks. So it's a good thing to celebrate the downfall of our enemies. Sometimes people take the scriptures wrong when it says to pray for your enemies, but they don't realize that was talking about our own people. But when you are in situations where as a nation, as a body, as a unit, you're now faced with all types of unwarranted aggression, and they're trying to remove you from the face of the earth. That's when we pray to the Lord, and the Lord will intervene, or the Lord will raise up saviors, like we read in the book of Nehemiah, to deliver us, right? Back then, they were going through some harsh situations and circumstances over and over and over, and it's become like a theme with us when you search throughout the history with so-called Negroes, so-called Hispanics, so-called Native Americans. As you go throughout the antiquities and you go throughout history, you'll see that we just didn't see these things over here in the Western society, in the New World. It was also over in the ancient world. It was also during this period of time they don't teach us in school. So again, looking at and acknowledging, the destruction of those who persecute and are persecuting us is a good thing, as we're going to read in the scriptures. It's like being a child and your parents leave you and they put you in foster care, right? And while you're in foster care, you're mistreated, you're abused, you're molested, right? All these things happen to you while you're in the care of the state, right? Where you've been given to certain people, and they're supposed to be your caregiver, but they really don't love you. They look at you probably as just a check, right? Or some kind of income just to be able to survive. And they mistreat you because you're not their own biological children. And then all of a sudden, your biological parent comes back to redeem you, or comes back to take you from out of that place. And sure, you're going to be happy when you see your father or your mother and they bring you out and they take you home, right? But you don't forget what it is that they've done to you, right? You've been in that foster care system, and it's been years and years of mistreatment, years and years of crying and pain and anguish. And sure, you are, joyous to now go to your parents' house and be reunited with your family, your father. You still want justice for what was done to you while you were there, right? If you watched it on any news today, they're going to go and prosecute whoever it is to the fullest extent of the law. Well, the Most High is going to do that for us in these last days. So we're kind of like in that foster care system that's been abusing us, raping us, killing us time and time again and again, and not being held accountable for their actions. So when we read in the Bible and we see some of these accounts, and there is some glimmer of hope, there is some light, there's some times where we can celebrate, it's a beautiful thing, right? Because that means that the Most High did give us, for that period of time, some form of justice to show us that he has our back, if we come to him, if we're on the right accord with his will, that he will do right by us, right? So we're going to read in the storyline in the book of Maccabees. We're going to go into Second Maccabeus, the 14th to 15th chapters. I mentioned this a few weeks back when we was doing the Sabbath service, that it was going to kind of be like a trilogy of sorts, because we was going to read portions of it for the Sabbath service, and then we was going to come to the day of Judas, which goes into around the same period, and then later on, when we go to back to the Sabbath service to read the last portion, we're going to catch back up. So it's a lot of revisiting of some of the things that we went through before, but it's good to again tap into that spirit, because sometimes you might get complacent, with just your everyday living, with your job or whatever it may be, and you may forget that this is not our homeland. We've been here so long that we don't know what our real homeland looks like or what it really is, right? This seems like home, because most of us, even though you may go visit and you may go and see it, as some brothers and sisters do, they go over to the land of Israel and they visit for a period of time, but you got other people in there occupying the land. You have new different rules and customs and things going on. You have imposters in the land. The land itself is not fruitful because of the wickedness and the dissension that's going on, abominations that's happening in the land. So it doesn't look and feel like home. And then for us who've been over here in the Western world, because of the captivity throughout the diaspora, whether you came over here through this transatlantic slave trade, or for some of us who were part of the sub-Saharan slave trade and went to other places, those of us who were already here, known as the northern tribes that got taken other places, we don't really know what home looks like. We've made secondary homes, whether you think Puerto Rico's your home, Mexico's your home, Cuba's your home, right? Now we think for the southern tribe, we think Ghana's our home. Everybody's flocking to Ghana as if Ghana is like the new Garden of Eden, the new motherland to go back to, where we're accepted. But that's not our home. So we've been so far spent here that we don't even know what our home is anymore, right? So let me read these two scriptures before we get into the storyline here. And it's a shame that we at this point where we got to fight to stay in tune. Like, we got to fight to stay in a zone where we got to remind ourselves what our purpose is, or why we're here. So go to Jeremiah, the 2nd chapter. And I'm going to start from the 13th verse. Jeremiah chapter 2 and verse 13. So Jeremiah 2, chapter 13 to 14, it says, "For my people have committed two evils. They have forsaken me, the fountain of living waters, and hewn them out cisterns, broken cisterns that can hold no water." Right? So the Most High looks at us and says that we have committed two evils, and we're continuously committing two evils right now here in these last days in the lands of our captivity, plural, where we have forgotten the Most High. We don't keep his laws. We don't keep the statutes as a nation, right? Where we replace the Most High with someone else or something else, right? So that's the first one. Then he says the thing that we replace them with, because he's upset and he realizes that it's no knowledge, it's no God. When he says that we have hewn them out cisterns, broken cisterns that can hold no water, right? We're supposed to be drinking of the living water, which comes from the Spirit, the Holy Spirit, which comes from the law that came from the Most High Yahweh Shah. Well, we replaced that with something else: Islam, Christianity, Catholicism, Buddhism, right? Agnosticism, all these other different things to replace the Most High with something that's not even valid, something that's not profitable. It's not going to hold any weight. It's not going to sustain us. So that's what's happened to us in these last days. We think we have a replacement in the lands of our captivity, but we don't, right? We forgot what really is our source, right? We are the Most High's portion, but we don't treat the Most High like he's our power. So the Lord says in the 14th verse, is Israel a servant? Is he a homeborn slave? Why is he spoiled? So because of this, the question is, it's a rhetorical question, are we just made to just be servants? Are we homeborn slaves that we're just going to continue this over and over and over and get comfortable? And that's what our role is? That the nations just can look at us as being slaves and servants, starting back when they grabbed us from the western shores of Africa, or they came over here to the Americas and enslaved us. And it's been hundreds and hundreds of years, but we still have forgotten the Most High, right? But we still have forgotten the commandments. So this is the question that was a rhetorical question that the Lord has asked. But now, through the grace and the mercy of the Lord, there's a remnant that has risen up. The elect has now been showered with the true living water, sprinkled to be purified by the Most High, that we now have the opportunity, such as on these evenings like this, to come back and learn the truth, right? So again, on days like this, when we, like I made the analogy, have been in a foster care system abused by the state, and now your true mother and father comes back, you still want to receive justice for what happened or what they did to you. That's what we see now when we see certain remnants in the scriptures about justice and judgment. And we're waiting on the next one to come, right? Now, one last one. Go to the book of Luke before we jump into Maccabees. Go to the book of Luke, chapter 18. Luke chapter 18 and verse 1. So in Luke chapter 18 and verse 1, this is a parable that Yahushua gave. And a lot of times you'll look at it as a parable of prayer and how we're supposed to be fervent in our prayers to the Most High. But it's also a secondary piece of wisdom that's in this parable that Yahushua has given about prayer. 18 and 1 of the book of Luke, it says, and he spake a parable unto them to this end, that men always, that men ought always pray and not faint, right? Sometimes the cares of the world might slow us down, where we don't pray often as we should. Sometimes I fall victim to it, where I don't pray as often for the things that is necessary. Even when things seem good, you still got to pray, because you may not know what's coming around the corner, what the next day is going to bring. So we should always not forget to pray to the Lord for things to sustain us, for our health, for the safety of our nation, the brothers, for knowledge, understanding. All these varieties of different things is what the Most High wants us to pray and meditate on to him continually, fervently. It says in verse 2, saying, there was in a city a judge which feared not God, neither regarded man. And there was a widow in that city, and she came unto him, saying, avenge me of mine adversary, right? So there's a judge in this parable that didn't fear the Most High, right? He didn't care about the Lord. He took matters into his own hand. His thoughts and his decision making was what he felt was righteous. He didn't regard the commandments and how we're supposed to weigh out certain things with equity, with justice, right? But then there was a widow who always came to him with a problem that was going on in the city, asking the judge to judge righteously, to say, listen, can you avenge me of my adversary? Your adversary is your foe or your enemy, right? And she was looking for justice for this enemy. Verse 4, and he would not for a while, but afterward he said within himself, though I fear not God, nor regard man, yet because this widow troubleth me, I will avenge her, lest by her continual coming she weary me, right? So this man, this judge said he don't really care or consider the Most High God, right? He don't care about righteousness and those things that the Lord wants to instill in each and every one of us. But as it pertains to justice, you know what? Let me deal with this woman, because right now She's bothering me. She's like a pain or a thorn in my side because she keeps coming to me, right? She keeps coming to me. And if I don't do anything, it's going to really cause me to probably just lose my wits. I'm getting wearied out here. So he now goes and deals with this woman. So now understanding that was wicked anyway, right? That was a wicked way of trying to give someone justice because a person kept coming to you for justice that you should have been dealing with from the onset. But she was persistent. She never stopped. Even though he didn't answer it at the time that he should have, she kept coming back, kept coming back, kept coming back. Her persistence got her that man to go and deal with the situation. Verse 6, and the Lord said, hear what the unjust judge saith, and shall not God avenge his own elect, which cry day and night unto him, though he be along with them? I tell you that he will avenge them speedily. Nevertheless, when the Son of Man cometh, shall he find faith on the earth, right? So the Lord looked at that, or Yahushua looked at that man, the Lord Yahushua, I said, looked at that man as an unjust man by how the way in which how he dealt with that widow, right? Now consider the Most High. As all of us, the righteous, the elect, pray to the Lord with persistence. What do you think if the man did it in that manner? What do you think the Most High is going to do in righteousness for the elect? He's going to unjudge this wicked foster care system, right? It's a system that the Most High put us in because of our punishment, right? We had to come over here and serve this captivity, but they went way above and beyond what they were supposed to. So the foster care system, Babylon, has to be dealt with. We're going to be taken out, but they got to be dealt with. It's the same thing. So the Lord says he's going to avenge our enemies because the parable is made in comparison to Israel and their enemies. Just like this widow and her enemies, she wanted to get vengeance from what they was doing. The Most High is going to come and do the same thing, right? So Israel, the elect, have to be in that mind state that even though it may seem cool for a time, right? Whether you at your job or in your neighborhood or somebody who's doing something good for you, and it may seem like everything is cool for right now, still it does not remove them from the judgment coming. All those hundreds of years, 1,000 years of all of the mistreatment that we've gone through by the hands of the nation, the Most High says he's coming to pay it back, right? And that's going to be a rejoice day, just like we read some of the other ones that we're going to read one tonight. We're going to read another one over the weekend with the days of Purim, with Mordecai and Hadassah, known as Esther, right? We're going to read another time when we went through the destruction of our enemies and we celebrate, right? So this is our Thanksgiving, right? Not what they gave us, but this is our Thanksgiving of honor and thanking the Most High and saluting those who stood up for us as a people, as a captain of the host, all right? So let's try to make sure we stay in that mindset as the days wear on and those spirits try to take us out of the zone as they sometimes ought to do. All right. So I read from Luke chapter 18, verses 1 down to 8. So now we're going to get into 2 Maccabeus chapter 14. Baba Kushal, can you give me a bottle of water? The water. So this is 2 Maccabees chapter 14 and 1. And if we've been paying attention to, our series as we're going in the book of the Apocrypha, during the times that we've been reading, you understand that during the Greeks rule, and at the time when we're reading here in the Maccabees, there was a lot of infighting. There was a lot of jockeying for power and position, dissension, treason amongst your own people, murder. A lot of things was going on during this time amongst the Greeks as well as amongst Israel, the Jews, right? We was doing certain things within the nation that wasn't right to each other, right? Selling out, giving away trade secrets to say the least about what things what we're doing to protect ourselves. And then you had it on the other side with the Greeks. They were doing the same thing amongst themselves. So when you read the storyline, I always say to play out for a great series, not a movie, but a great series with like 6 different parts, 6 different seasons, or I should say 7 seasons to it, 7 being completion. So there's a lot of content, there's a lot of history that's in this time frame that's not even written. Sometimes when you read outside sources about this period of time that we're reading now, you'll find out other little chambers that kind of give insight as to some certain backstories that's not fully displayed or fully accounted for in the scriptures because it's not that relevant. But if you're a historian, you check it out, it'll open your chambers to some other things that, make you take you down another path to enlighten us as a nation. All right. So these are some of the things that we also want to tap into as we read this. So this is 2 Maccabees chapter 14 and verse 1. And it reads, it says, after these 3 years, it says, after 3 years was Judas informed that Demetrius, the son of Seleucus, having entered by the haven of Tripolis with a great power and navy, had taken the country and killed Antiochus and Lysias, his protector, right? So like we mentioned about 3 weeks ago, or 4 weeks ago probably, during this time, Antiochus Epiphanes, who was that Greek ruler at the time when they first came in and defiled the nation, defiled the city, he had now been killed by the Most High. Incurable disease or plague was put upon him when he came to try to destroy us as a people. This Antiochus here is his son Jupiter, and he had a protector or someone who was, Antiochus Jupiter was a young man at the time, and he had a protector or someone to bring him up until he became an adult to take the reins as being king. But now you have another man named Demetrius who also was in line to be king as well. So now while they're out, campaigning, Demetrius now comes in to take the throne, and now he sends out a force to go and kill Antiochus Jupiter and his protector Lysias and remove them out of the way, and then now take the throne, right? Antiochus Epiphanes, when we read this in 1 Maccabees, the 7th chapter, I believe he left a man by the name of Philip to take the throne and handle all his affairs until this Antiochus Jupiter was old enough to do it. But that didn't happen, right? Because again, they were still on odds doing different things, Philip and Antiochus Jupiter. Demetrius, this man comes in and now is usurping himself to the throne and removing all competition out of the way. All right. So I'm going to read that again. After 3 years was Judas informed that Demetrius, the son of Seleucus, having entered by the haven of Tripolis with a great power and navy, right? So you remember when we first read in 1 Maccabees, the Seleucus dynasty was the dynasty in the region of who we now fell under, right? He is the son of Seleucus. So that's why he now feels that he is a direct line of heir to the throne when he died. Antiochus Epiphanes took the throne first. So now he's gone, his son is dead, he removes him out of the way. That's why sometimes we give you those names and we give you the maps and everything else so that you can see how all of this plays in line. Verse 2, had taken the country and killed Antiochus and Lysias his protector. Verse 3, now one alchemist who had been high priest and had defiled himself willfully in the times of their mingling with the Gentiles, seeing that by no means he could save himself, nor have any more access to the holy altar. So this was a Levite who defiled himself, who switched sides, right? For opportunity, for prestige, for gain, right? That's what usually happens. Sometimes people don't see that it's a good thing to stay in line with the Lord and follow the commandments, follow the example established or set by our ancient ancestors, followed by Yahushua, and they see what's before them, and they said, you know what, I want to go and do that. And they give up their name, being a prince of the Most High God, to be a son of Satan, right? That's what this man alchemist did. He willfully had his mingling with the Gentiles, right? And because he did that, Israel did not allow him to become high priest anymore, because he would have defiled the sanctuary. So now he has a problem, right? He wants to keep that title, but he also wants to keep himself mingled with the heathen. Verse 4, came to King Demetrius in the 150th year, presenting unto him a crown of gold and a palm, and also of the bowls which were used solemnly in the temple. And so that day he held his peace, right? So you'll see it's a custom when some of the wicked of our people, especially the priests, in order to please the enemy, they'll go and take of the holy vessels and sanctified things to the Most High out of the temple, and go and present these things to these kings as a form of tribute to them, right? Not that they couldn't go get something else from somewhere, not out of the sanctuary, but they always wanted to go into the sanctuary and take something that was sacred, right? Making themselves even more hated by the Most High, that the Lord is going to seek vengeance upon them. Verse 5, howbeit, having gotten opportunity to further his foolish enterprise, and being called into counsel by Demetrius, and asked how the Jews stood affected and what they intended, he answered thereunto, right? So now, being that he's a traitor to his people, Demetrius now wants to get some information. He wants him to snitch, right? He wants him to give up the goods as far as for how they operate, what's really going on with them as a people, what's their weaknesses, right? You always see that in movies, and you see it played out. That's what happens in real life, that at the times of our captivities, you've had other people on the inside switch sides and align themselves with the enemy and give them all our inner workings, right? How we operate, or what's our weaknesses. Verse 6, it says, those of the Jews that be called Assyrians, whose captain is Judas Maccabeus, nourish men and are seditious, and will not let their realm be in peace, right? So the Assyrians were those who were dedicated to the commandments, dedicated to the righteous acts of keeping the law, right? That was the title that was given to them, right? When you read it back in First Maccabees, the 2nd chapter, around the 42nd verse, you'll see that they came to Mattathias, right, Judas's father at that time, to align themselves with him, and they became at that time one unit. So now that also proliferated. So now we'll see here alchemists, knowing that what that group were about, he's now lumping Judas Maccabeus in with them, calling all of them the Assyrians, but now Judas is their captain of the host. It says that they nourish war and are seditious, and will not let the realm be in peace. So that's a false witness. That's not what was going on, right? They were defending themselves. They were defending their name. They were defending the land. They were defending the temple. They were defending the name of the Most High, the commandments, right? That's what they were doing. They were not nourishing war. They were trying to prevent it, but now keep themselves in line with the Most High. But this guy is a false witness and a liar. Verse 7. Therefore, I, being deprived of mine ancestors' honor, I mean the high priesthood, am now come hither. First, verily, for the unfeigned care I have of the things pertaining to the king. And secondly, even for that I intend the good of mine own countrymen, for all our nation is in no small misery through the unadvised dealing of them aforesaid. Wherefore, O king, seeing thou knowest all these things, be careful for the country and our nation, which is pressed on every side, according to the clemency that thou readily showest unto all. For as long as Judas liveth, it is not possible that the state should be quiet, right? So knowing that Judas, the Assyrians, and those who are all rolling with him and had joined themselves to them were a cancer or a thorn in his side from now getting back to what he wanted, to be a high priest, but to also align himself to the king, right? Paying homage because he wanted to receive certain benefits, but also still keep that title. And the only way that he could do it was to have him remove Judas out of the way, because Judas now strategically had people in different places to prevent those who were the uncircumcised now in heart and in spirit from continuing doing what they were doing. So he said he got to be removed out of the way. So now this is what he's petitioning to Demetrius. Verse 11. This was no sooner spoken of him, but others of the king's friend, being maliciously set against Judas, did more incense Demetrius, right? So as Alchemist is speaking, you have other people that now are on the sidelines listening, and they come in adding their other 2 and nickel and dime cents, right? They're just furthering it on, because keep in mind, Judas was a great warrior at this time. He had fought several battles and won them, right? Being a quote unquote small nation to the bigger Greek Empire. So when you have this man and those Jews at the time defeating the enemies that were coming against them, they looked at him as a problem, right? They're like, this guy here, man, I don't know what it is with these Jews, but they keep winning these wars as they're going out doing other things. So now as one of their own is coming inciting these lies, they're now saying, yeah, we gotta get rid of this guy, right? Exactly, right? This guy saying I can't align myself and eat the defiled things that you guys so love to uphold. Man, I can't do this, right? I can't go naked and work out naked in the gym. What? Right? All these things that was now a part of their custom. Now he's trying to prevent that, Demetrius, right? So now it puts Judas on notice, right? Now he has to do something when you got one of their own, a wicked Jew, and then you have your confidants all speaking about this one individual. So now you got to try to do something, because an issue or a problem left undealt with can become a whirlwind. It could become a bigger problem, right? That's in anything when people, whether you're wicked, whether you're righteous, most will know that you have to deal with a situation before it blows up, right? And Judas was, he was bubbling up, right? It says in verse 12, and forthwith calling Nicanor, who had been master of the elephants, and making him governor over Judea, he sent him forth, commanding him to slay Judas and to scatter them that were with him, and to make Alchemist high priest of the great temple, right? So now we read that there's another new captain that is now coming to deal with Judas. And it says that he was a master of the elephants. But he wasn't just a master of the elephants. He didn't choose Nicanor because he was just the master of the elephants, right? When you read in 1 Maccabeus, the 7th chapter, and the 26th verse, First Maccabees 7:26. It says, then the king sent Nicanor, the same Nicanor that we're reading about now, one of his honorable princes, a man that bare deadly hate unto Israel, with commandment to destroy the people, right? So this man, master of the elephants, honorable prince, those are, good titles and things to align yourself with, the king. But one of the true characteristics that now take this to the next level is because he bear deadly hate. When it says deadly hate, that means he would go out of his way to do that he needed to do or could do to kill somebody that was a Jew. Deadly hate, poison them, right? Set them up. Do all kinds of things to see the downfall of our people. We're the most hated people in the earth. That's the reality. More than the Arabs, right? The same ones that we seen from 2001 when the towers dropped and they put that stain on them and said that they did this and they did that, they blew up this.
right? And everybody that's going out the war over there in the Middle East, but they still can come over here and get loans, start businesses. For those of us who are here, helping go fight against them, we still the ones that's getting shot down, mistreated, right? All of these things that's happening all over the earth, all over the world, all these different nations doing certain things, we're still the most hated. Because the Lord said that there will be a perpetual hatred between the two of us. And all other nations that align themselves with them fall in line, fall into in the same vein. So this is the reality. Deadly hate unto Israel. So when we see, certain things play themselves out in today's time, right? And people say, yeah, the Ku Klux Klan is alive today. They're taking off the hoods and now they in suits. They are more than just suits. They're blue collar workers. They got on nice three-piece suits. They everywhere. They got the blue on. They're everywhere. The cops, security guards, school teachers, at the bank, wherever, right? You may not know where they are, but it exists. That spirit that's perpetual exists. And as we read through different empires, it always showed or rears its hoary head to now let it be known that this has been going on for a while, right? You can't get around it. Most people think that we're just too sensitive and we should just get over it. Bygones be bygones, but that's not justice. It's not equity. They got slogans, never forget. Never forget. Well, by reading these scriptures, we ain't going to forget. We're going to try to remember to the day Yahweh shall come and gives us justice in the last days. And then it'll get to be a time where we don't have to worry about that anymore, right? Then we could forget because we know that they're never going to rise up again and do the same thing, right? So let's go back to 2 Maccabees chapter 14. We have verse 13 now. It says, commanding him to slay Judas and to scatter them that were with him and to make alchemists high priests of the great temple. Then the heathen that had fled out of Judea from Judas came to Nicanor by flocks, thinking the harm and calamities of the Jews to be their welfare, right? So on the other side, where Judas was now trying to rid evil from out of Judea, out of Jerusalem and the surrounding cities, right? They're now scrambling around trying to hide and look for places of succor. When word comes out that this man Nicanor and his host is coming to now murder the Jews, they said, we're going to come and line ourselves with him. And at the destruction of the Jews, that's going to be our Thanksgiving. That's going to be our joyous occasion. That's what they wanted, right? It says in 15, now when the Jews heard of Nicanor's coming and that the heathen were up against them, they cast earth upon their heads and made supplication to him that had established his people forever and who always helpeth his portion with manifestation of his presence, right? So that's the key. We've had examples in the scriptures where if we humbled ourselves, prayed, fasted, turned from our evil or wicked ways in the sight of the nations when they're coming against us, backs against the wall, that not only would the Most High allow or raise up a savior or bring an individual in to help defend us, scriptures say, Lord would honor and bless us with his presence, meaning he himself would come and save the day as he's done in the past. Judas is going to make an account to go back to some of those points when we read in this story. That's the difference that we have with the Most High that other people don't have. They don't have a real God, a real power, a real force, a real spirit, a real entity that can come from out of this world, out of this stratosphere, not even hemisphere, out of this stratosphere and come down and defend his people. It's recorded, right? That's the beauty of having the records, because not only do our records sometimes account for these things, the other nations also account for them. They have it in their records. So the Most High's word is true, right? We didn't need it, but we now know two or more testimonies validate certain points, right? So it says that the Most High would help us with the manifestation of his presence. Verse 16. So at the commandment of the captain, they removed straightways from thence and came near unto them at the town of Desar. Now Simon, Judas's brother, had joined battle with Nicanor, but was somewhat discomfited to the sudden silence of his enemies, right? Because certain times when you go in and you're expecting something, and it's as easy as it may be, or you're not seeing the full force, something just seems off, right? It says, nevertheless, Nicanor, hearing of the manliness of them that were with Judas and the courageousness that they had to fight for their country, durst not try the matter by the sword, right? So when you see the manliness of your enemy, that they're willing to die and put their lives on the line and not care about if they make it back home, how do you fight? Because that's what happens sometimes in today's wars. Most soldiers, when they go out, they may not even believe in the mission or the reason why they have to go to a certain area to go and fight and go and blow certain things up. The only thing they care about is coming back home. But now when they go into these environments and they see who it is that they now has to oppose, and they realize that these individuals, they don't care. They're not trying to make it back home. They're trying to defend their home. They're trying to defend their so-called God. And they're willing to die for it, right? So they don't have the same courageousness as other people do. That's why they, send things from out of the sky, bombs drop, planes shooting long, missiles from, way out, because they don't want to suffer any casualties, right? They rather do it from afar, not hand to hand, not face to face, with all the technology and things they got. They didn't have all that back then. It was mainly face to face, hand to hand combat. And when he saw the spirit that was in Judas and the army that he was rolling with at the time, he respected it, right? And he was like, listen, there's more to this man. There's more to these Jews than meets the eye. Time and time again, now others don't sell to him. Let's go and do this by policy. Let's go and talk this out. Let me see what type of individual he is. That's the mindset that Nicanor is on. Now, granted, he's a wicked man. There's a lot of wicked captain of hosts or generals or leaders, but sometimes they may be smart in how they want to approach the opposition or how they want to tackle a war. They say, you know what, we can't go about it this way. Let's try another way. And this is what Nicanor is about to do, right? Verse 19, wherefore he sent Posidonius and Theodotus and Mattathias to make peace. So when they had taken the long advisement thereupon, and the captain had made the multitude acquainted therewith, and it appeared that they were all of one mind, they consented to the covenants, and appointed a day to meet in together by themselves. And when the day came, and stools were set for either of them, Judas placed armed men ready in convenient places, lest some treachery should be suddenly practiced by the enemies. So they made a peaceable conference, right? They had to sit down. Sometimes you see that where two nations are fighting, and they want to reach a peace agreement or a peace deal. They may have a mediator. See them on the news. One person standing over here, another one standing over there. Someone there, and it says, "Yeah, we reached a ceasefire, and we come together, and we reach terms, and the end the war is ended, or what have you." Right? That's another way of approaching a situation. Right? Let's talk it out. Maybe we can reason together, save lives. So this is what happened here, where Nicanor sent certain ambassadors on his behalf to talk to Judas and his company to agree to terms and have a sit down. But Judas didn't always trust him, right? He says, I'm gonna see what this is about, but I'm gonna have people in strategic places lest something go left, right? Lest they try to, hoodwink me, and now catch me off guard. So him being a good warrior, always thought tactfully and placed these men in certain areas just in case. Verse 23. Now Nicanor abode in Jerusalem and did no hurt, but sent away the people that came flocking unto him. So when he came, kept the man of his word, he didn't do anything. A man that bare hatred to the people of Jerusalem, to the people of Judea, would definitely cause people to be on guard. But he didn't do anything. He did no hurt, caused no injury, right? And made no oppositions of force to Jerusalem at the time, or Israel at the time when he came through, right? And then sent some of his people away. Said, listen, I don't need y'all. Y'all can go back to home base. We cool here. Verse 24. And he would not willingly have Judas out of his sight, for he loved the man from his heart. He prayed him also to take a wife and to beget children. So he married, was quiet, and took part of this life, right? So he respected him and, went about with him. Went this way, did certain things, and, was seen together going here and there. He respected this man as a warrior, as a true warrior sometimes does when he fights against his enemy, or he sees someone who's just like him or even greater than him, right? And he told Judas, listen, don't worry about us. Everything is cool. Enjoy your life. Have children, marry, and that's what Judas did at the time. So that means time went by, right? This wasn't like a 1 day, 2 day, 1 week thing. This was months have now transpired where things have now calmed itself down, and now they're just going about their lives. That's the thing that you always got to be careful of, because that's what they want us to do. Put our guards down, get comfortable, make this appear that everything is just fine and there's nothing to worry about amongst all the chaos around you, right? That's what they put this influence on Judas. Verse 26, but alchemists, right? Remember, there's always going to be wickedness, especially in this setup. There's always going to be someone who comes with wickedness. Always. When you think there's peace, wickedness, Satan's going to come in. That's this guy, right? But alchemists, perceiving the love that was betwixt them and considering the covenants that were made, came to Demetrius and told him that Nicanor was not well affected toward the state, for that he had ordained Judas a traitor to his realm to be the king's successor, right? So now alchemists is letting it be known that Nicanor was not a friend of the state. He was almost crossing the line of being an enemy of the state, because he's now showing favor to Judas, right? And he's now adding more lies. He's a liar. He's adding more lies, saying that he wants to be the king's successor, right? So things just will the Lord sometimes will allow certain things, even on the left-hand side, so they can play their cards, so you can see what they're really about. Sometimes, again, we always talk about, oh, this guy's not that bad. Sometimes you got to have certain things happen for you to see that, yeah, they're that bad, right? You think everything is just cool, but the Lord will allow the Spirit to show forth through, guidance. The Lord will push certain things to happen so that you can see what it really is about, right? It says, verse 27, then the king, being in a rage and provoked with the accusations of the most wicked man, wrote to Nicanor, signifying that he was much displeased with the covenants, and commanding him that he should send Maccabeus prisoner in all haste unto Antioch. So now Demetrius is not well fond of Nicanor, who the man that he put in charge, right? So imagine you got your boss or your supervisor, and they putting you in charge of something, and all of a sudden you come back and hear that he's displeased with you. He don't think that you're doing a good job. It's going to make you feel away, right? It's going to make you now be like, damn, either I can be replaced or somebody may come in after me and remove me out the way, right? Take my spot. That's what usually happens. Fired or somebody treacherously come and kills you. That's how they operate, right? So now he's put on notice. Verse 28, when this came to Nicanor's hearing, he was much confounded in himself and took it grievously that he should make void the articles which were agreed upon, the man being in no fault, right? There's usually nothing that we do that now is something to provoke another nation to come and do some harm to us. In reality, most of the time, it's usually us disobeying the commandments of the Most High. Whereas all the other nations, they always provoke one another. This nation was that land. This person went and did taken some what was the inheritance of somebody else, or they taken too much of what they want for their kingdom, and now they feel threatened and they go and fight one another. Or he wants his resources and that. Everybody else always does that. We don't do that. You search the history, we're one of the most peaceful nations out there, right? So when it says that this man was not at fault, we know he did nothing against them. There's nothing that he could have been held in a charge to say that, yeah, he wronged the Greeks, right? Same thing during the time of Yahushua. As wicked as Pilate was, he didn't have anything lawful to say that Yahushua did, right? He didn't provoke them. It was wicked men like alchemists, the priests at that time, as well as other times that always came with false witnesses, right? To fulfill what the Most High put in place, whether it be for our captivity and punishment or for other agendas, right? But we're not the ones who usually do wrong or harm to another nation unprovoked, right? Verse 28. Verse 29. But because there was no dealing against the king, he watched his time to accomplish this thing by policy. Notwithstanding, Maccabeus saw that Nicanor began to be churlish unto him, right? Really rough, abrasive, right? Before he respected him, he wouldn't have him out of his sight, go here and there. Now he's, a little bit more standoffish. His body language is now different. And of course, if you're a man that's observant, always checking out everything, you would say, you know what? It's time. That energy is different. It's time to move away from this guy, right? And that he had treated him more roughly than he was wont, perceiving that such sour behavior came not of good. He gathered together not a few of his men and withdrew himself from Nicanor. So he said he gathered himself not a few, meaning he had a lot of men with him, right? He rode with a pack, an army, hundreds, maybe 1,000 men. So let's go, but just in case he come and try to take us unawares. Verse 31. But the other, knowing that he was notably prevented by Judas's policy, came into the great and holy temple and commanded the priests that were offering their usual sacrifices to deliver him the man. So when he realized that he separated himself with a great force and he couldn't really do nothing to him, he got vexed. All right. And the next thing that usually they always do, they want to go and try to get the person that's next to you that they can harm, that's going to affect you. Right. That's what you see on sometimes in movies or shows, and sometimes it plays out in real life. They go and get a child or a wife or a family member, right, and try to do harm to them to get you to come out, to get you to give yourself up. So that's what he's doing now. He's going around trying to find ways to now really put a dent in his name by now trying to destroy and do other different things, right? So now he's going to the temple to go see if he can leverage them to bring him out, right? It says, verse 32, and when they swear that they could not tell where the man was whom he sought, he stretched out his right hand toward the temple and made an oath in this manner. If you will not deliver me, Judas, as a prisoner, I will lay this temple of God even with the ground, and I will break down the altar and erect a notable temple unto Bacchus, right? So, with your right hand, that's your power, right? Even the wicked, use the right hand. We know that Esau does everything with the left because they're from the left-handed spirit, Satan. But when it comes to authority and power, the right hand is still where you make agreements, you make oaths, you shake hands or pounds, right? sign and do certain things, even though some people are left-handed. But that's the custom. So by him going and doing it with his right hand, meaning that's his power, he's now laying it to law that once you make an oath, again, we know in the law, once you make an oath, you can't go back on that. Right? So it's probably best if you don't make an oath. But that's what he's doing. He's swearing that he's going to come and destroy the temple and erect a new temple there, because the priests at that time wouldn't give up or didn't know what Judas was. So he's now looking to come and destroy the temple of the Most High God, right? Dedicated by first King Solomon, right? Which was initially by King David, but couldn't do it, and Solomon did it. He wants to destroy all of that, right? It says in verse 34, after these words he departed, then the priests lifted up their hands toward heaven and besought him that was ever a defender of their nation, saying in this manner, though our Lord of all things, who has need of nothing, was pleased that the temple of thine habitation should be among us. Therefore, now, O holy Lord of all holiness, keep this house ever undefiled, which lately was cleansed, and stop every unrighteous mouth. Right? So when you read in 1 Kings, the 8th chapter, through the 9th chapter, you'll read about when the Most High accepted the temple, his temple that was built by man's hands within the nation to dwell amongst us as a place of worship to him, right? And at this time, it had already been defiled by the Greeks. So now the Lord raised up Judas and his family, Mattathias and them, to now come back and deliver it back into our hands and cleanse it. So they're praying that the Most High would now come and deliver us and defend, so that they not only don't defile it, but they don't also come and destroy it, because it had already been ransacked by them, right? It says, 37, now was there accused unto Nicanor one Razes, one of the elders of Jerusalem, a lover of his countrymen, and a man of very good report, who for his kindness was called a father of the Jews, right? So again, someone was made mention to Nicanor, this guy Razes, right? Someone who was like the Assyrians, like Judas, lover of his countrymen and lover of the laws. So they said, listen, there go that guy right there, Razes. You might want to go snatch him up, right? Well, favorite by Israel, a father of the Jews, not a physical father, but he had that, father-like title over us as a people. He was like what we would call an OG, right? An OG to Israel as a people, right? Other men had that same title. Matter of fact, go to the book of 1 Timothy. First Timothy chapter 5. And verse 1. Quiet if you can read that about Rashad. 1 Timothy chapter 5 and verse 1.
1 Timothy chapter 5 and verse 1 reads, but of the time and the seasons, brethren, ye have no need that I write unto you.
1 Timothy 5.
First Timothy chapter 5 and verse 1. Rebuke not an elder, but entreat him as a father, and the younger man as brethren.
Right. So it says, rebuke not an elder, right? Don't disrespect or dishonor an elder, Those who put time in, years in, labored, raised up, taught, right? So you're not supposed to rebuke or disrespect or dishonor an elder. It says to but entreat him as a father, right? That's why the Lord put it in the law to honor your father and your mother, right? That experience of now paying homage and respect to them carries over to other individuals who may not be your paternal or maternal parent, but you can see those same qualities that they take care of and nourish others as well in the same like capacity, right? So those who were elders, as it said that Razes was one of the elders of Jerusalem, a lover of his countrymen, right? It says to entreat him as a father, and that's what it said about him. He was called the father of the Jews, right? So that's something that Paul himself now gave as guidance to Timothy and the others who are now following in suit in the spirit. Same thing for us, right? When we look at elders, those who put time in 10, 20 years into the time, but before you came in, you would treat them as that because that's the proper due respect they deserve. As we others grow up, that's the same thing that we're going to receive, right? Go to First Thessalonians chapter 2. And verse 10. First Thessalonians chapter 2 and verse 10. Wow, if you read that also.
First Thessalonians chapter 2, right?
Come.
First Thessalonians chapter 2 and verse 10, right?
Come.
Ye are witnesses, and God also, how orderly and justly and unwittingly we behave ourselves in you that believe.
Right. So that's supposed to be those of us who are raised up to be stewards, teachers. That's the example that we have to follow in, right? We have to present ourselves wholly and justly, unblameable. You can't always point out something that Samak did and he did this. I seen him taking the money. I seen him trying to talk to this brother's wife. I seen him going. It's not how we're supposed to be operating, right? We're supposed to be holy, just, and unblameable amongst the church, amongst the congregation, right? Read on.
11. As ye know how we started, exhorted. As ye know how we exhorted and comforted and charged every one of you as a father to his children.
Right. As you bear witness how we exhorted and raised you up. The same way a father does his son, he takes care, he clothes and nourishes and feeds. That's what we're doing in the spirit. And sometimes literally, right? That's how we've been operating. Like the way you're supposed to take care of your children. That man, Paul, and those who are with him also got that title as being a father to the church. That's what Razzi's, right? So now we see sometimes, even when you are righteous in your zone, right? A father or a good steward to the people, it's being well known. Look, it's one of them Israelites right there, right? So we see in these last days, when certain things come out, they may see the fringes, they may see your walk and how you deal differently from everybody else. You don't eat the same, you don't participate in the same event, you stand out. So now when time comes, like, yo, they go one of those guys, get that guy right there, right? They want to use you to make an example out of you, right? And that's what happens from time to time. So in the last days, we know that treachery, that hatred runs deep, right? It's a reincarnated spirit. Same way the righteous spirit comes back all the time. Those same spirits come back to do the same thing again. Those same spirits, those Nicanors, Tryphons, all of them is back here again, probably sitting up in high positions in the seat of a judge, right? Police chief, some corporate businessman that has a lot of influence and money to go do stuff. They are all there, looking to make examples. There's videos right now that's circulating with what's his name? Bill Gates, right? And how Bill Gates is like, he don't care. He's spilling the beans about the next wave of things that's coming, how they're going to try to leverage these things to do us harm, right? But it's not being put out there on CBS, ABC, CNN News, right? No way. They're not putting that out there, but you got to find the offbeat news stations. It's out there. They're talking about these things, right? Sometimes we see it, those of us who are aware, post some of these things in the group chat. We see some of these videos, but they're doing these things. Yeah, it's out. They're doing these things. So when we see and we read these things, we should realize where the spirit comes from, because it was here from the beginning, all the way from the beginning, right? These spirits just come up, as a plate, right? Burn and put it right on top. It didn't just come up here as a plate, right? It's always been here. So we always got to be wise as a serpent, harmless as a dove, right? Because things like this is bound to happen. You got to make sure you know your surroundings, you know your enemy, whether they be of the nations or they be of your own people, so that you don't have an alchemist in the midst, right? You don't have a chasten in the midst that was another priest that was wicked during that time, that now comes in and tries to do you harm or sell you out. Always got to be, careful, right? Meaning you always, right? You want to be careful for all things, knowledgeable about as many things as you can. All right, let's go back. Second Maccabeus chapter 14, and we at verse 39. Water. So it says, so Nicanor, willing to declare the hate, now that spirit comes back up again, right? We read in First Maccabees 7 that he bared deadly hate to the Jews. So now it says 39, so Nicanor willing to declare the hate that he bare unto the Jews. So it was dormant for a time, but it'll resurface. It'll come back up, right? It says, sent about 500 men of war to take him. That's how much hate he had for him. 500 men to take this one guy, Rasmus. Right? It's like the cops coming to somebody's house, like a 70-some-year-old woman for a summons. You got like 8 cops outside. You're like, yo, this 70-some-year-old woman. Why are you going y'all for? Y'all can't deal with a woman? It's hate, deadly hate, or disregard for elders, or disregard for people. Right? That's what happens. Spirit comes up. Verse 40. For he thought by taking him to do the Jews much hurt, and using him as a tool, using him as a pawn. Make an example of him. Put hurt on him, do something bad to him. It's like, oh man, we gotta find that Jew. Because if he don't stop, we're gonna go and kill all of us. So we gotta go kill up that one man. That's what he wants. Verse 41. Now when the multitude would have taken the tower and violently broke into the outer door and bade that fire should be brought to burn it, he being ready to be taken on every side fell on his sword, right? So now he ran up in the tower, closing doors, running through different places. And when he realized that, man, they got me besieged, man. You know what? I'm just going to have to just take my life, man, because when you see in certain instances, King Saul did the same thing, or you even see in real life, sometimes people don't want to fall into the hand of their enemies because they're just going to make a mockery of. They're going to torture them and do all kinds of things, disgrace them. So you rather leave and not have to bear that pain, bear that disgrace. You take yourself out, right? It says, choosing rather to die manfully than to come into the hands of the wicked, to be abused otherwise than beseem his noble birth, right? Because this was an honorable man. He didn't want to be prostrated through the streets, strung up, whipped, bleak cut, spit at, and everything else, that despise his noble birth. We are noble people. We're not supposed to be disrespected in the manner in which we're disrespected, especially when you're a righteous individual, right? That's why I was shot on another level to come to the things that he did, because he was perfect, right? And they slapped him and spit on him and did all kinds of things to him. But he had to suffer those things for the sin or the iniquity of us as a people, because the Most High was upset with us at this point.
Now, this is the suicide that this man is committing, right?
You could call it that.
And that's unforgivable in the eyes of God.
I guess you have to look at it circumstantial, right? When you read it in Wisdom of Solomon, I believe. Let me correct myself. Let me just check it. Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 1. And 12. So Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 1, verse 12, it says, seek not death in the era of your life, right? So there's times when you may, be a murderer, drug abuser, a thief, robber, right? Or, a traitor to your people, have done a whole bunch of things, and you may see that there's just no good in you. So why am I here? I'm just going to take my life. The Lord doesn't want you to seek death for the era of your life, right? Razzies wasn't doing that for the era of his life. His purpose was because he didn't want to fall into the hands of his enemy to be disgraced, right? So yes, you can look at it as a form of suicide in the same sense that King Saul did not want to fall into the hands of his enemy. Saul is a bit different from Razzies, because we know Saul had a line of iniquities that just kept compounding upon themselves. The Most High stepped away from Saul. Razzies was a noble man, a righteous, honorable man at that time. And because now of what Nicanor had now sworn as an oath to destroy the temple, and now he's coming on an assault to kill us, he said, I don't want to fall into the hands of the enemy. So it wasn't because he was wicked or evil, which the Most High doesn't want us to do. It's because of the disgrace and torture and things that was going to happen. Now, the Most High, the Lord is the ultimate decision maker on how he's going to view that. But we could just use, a little bit of wisdom to say, for a person who's doing it because of this, compared to what he's doing is different, right? And he will have a little bit more favor and mercy on him because of this situation than someone who's just going out there and saying, you know what, I got no good in me, I'm just going to take my life, right? Now, you could say that he could have had some patience and prayed and called on the Lord, and maybe he would have sent the angel down and, wiped them all out, right? You're right. But again, knowing that outside of Yahushua, no one is perfect in that manner in all avenues of the fruits of the Spirit. That said he had, full patience, full temperance, and things of that nature to do these things. So again, he did this to avoid the persecution and mockery. But again, it's the Lord who will look at mercy on them and have vengeance on them, because that's what we want. Because these people is coming against us, to have vengeance and mercy for the situation.
Saul did it for the same reason that this man did it. Saul didn't do it because he knew he was wicked. Saul did it for the same reason that this man.
Saul did it for the same reason, but again, read about Saul's continual iniquity, and the Lord told Saul that he stepped away from it. And then,
but he did it because he didn't want to be in the hands of the Philistines.
Right.
Okay.
So now we have verse 43. It says, 2 Maccabeus chapter 14 and 43. But missing his stroke through haste, The multitude also rushing within the doors, he ran boldly up to the wall and cast himself down manfully among the thickets of them. But they quickly given back, and a space being made, fell down into the midst of the void place. Nevertheless, while there was yet breath within him, being inflamed with anger, he rose up and through his blood, and though his blood gushed out like spouts of water, and his wounds were grievous, yet he ran through the midst of the throng, and standing upon a steep rock, when as his blood was now quite gone, he plucked out his bowels, and taking them in both his hands, he cast them upon the throng, and calling upon the Lord of life and spirit to restore him those again who thus died. Right? So, like we went to before when we read this back in the Sabbath service, his adrenaline running or had to have been racing so much because of the way his injuries were. He fell down and his gut split open and his stuff was coming out, bleeding profusely. But he still got up and ran amongst the throng. The throng is those other individuals who are trying to get at him and do certain things to him. But he's, get off me. And he's running through. And then he ran and took his guts and threw it out on him, prayed to the Lord that he would restore him again. Right? That's what we want, especially if you're into something like that and your enemy is about to get the best of you, or they're about to get the upper hand and you have to die. You want to pray to be reincarnated to get vengeance against your enemies. The sister in 2nd Maccabeus, I believe the 8th chapter, with her sons, the same thing, right? That she prayed to the Lord, that the Lord would bring them back so that they get their vengeance of what was now being placed upon them. Chapter 15, verse 1. But Nicanor, hearing that Judas and his company were in the strong places about Samaria, resolved without any danger to set upon them on the Sabbath day. Right? So your enemy, and as we read in the 1st Maccabees, how some individuals came on the Sabbath day because that's a day of rest. They knew that we kind of honored that day and we wouldn't probably want to go out and fight. So that already happened, and now here it is during the time of Nicanor that they're looking to do the same thing, right? To come and try to fight against us on the Sabbath day, the day of the Lord. Nevertheless, the Jews that were compelled to go with him, so now he has Israelites that's with him in his army, that sided with Nicanor and the Greeks, that's rolling with their company. It says, read it again. Nevertheless, the Jews that were compelled to go with him said, "Oh, destroy not so cruelly and barbarously, but give honor to that day, which he that seeth all things have honored with holiness above other days." Right? So that's what it tells you, and I think in Ecclesiasticus is 33:7, right? That the Most High made one day, over another day. So this was the Jews who sided with Nicanor and the Greeks, had a moment of clarity and said, hold on, come on now, this is a little bit too much. We still remember the Sabbath day. Come on, Nicanor, like choose Sunday. Choose the first day of the week. Choose the third day of the week. Let's not go on this day. This is the day that the Most High God sanctified so that it should be honored. That's what they're saying. Verse 3. Then the most ungracious wretch demanded if there were a mighty one in heaven that had commanded the Sabbath day to be kept. So now he's disregarding the Lord, right? What God are you talking about? Show me him. Where is he at? Who is this God that now has sanctified this day? Right? Because most times these individuals are so puffed up, as you see with other men like him or other kings, pharaohs, they look at themselves as a god. Because sometimes at them, when you got the power to command folks to do certain things, you get puffed up. And you think that you are that thing, that person, that God. Well, I never said that. I ain't heard this guy say, who is this guy? Show me him so I can see him stand before me. And that's kind of where people try to marginalize or minimize the Most High God to being a man or to be just like a carnal man. I want to see him face to face, right? And if he's not like what we are, as far as for mortal men, they disregard him. They don't realize the scriptures say that the Lord is the invisible God. He doesn't have to show his face. He shows his power. He has angels. He has us. He has different ways of being able, the elements, to show who he is. But through pompous, through pride, you'll see these types of things come out of the enemy, right? Reading again, verse 3. Then the most, oh, Salah.
Not exactly the same, but since you mentioned King Saul, that makes me think about when they were at Nob. When King Saul, the evil spirit, asked his men to fall upon the priesthood. And not as they were zealous, they were following the king. Even those Jews, couldn't follow their king's law because it was you can't kill the priest of the Most High. Like I think there are I know there are people tough fight that was like the king. How can we do something as hard as this? Kill the Most High Most High's and join unto him. Kind of easy to get that.
Mm-hmm. Verse 3. Then the most ungracious wretch demanded if there were a mighty one in heaven that had commanded the Sabbath day to be kept. And when they said, there is in heaven a living Lord and mighty who commanded the seventh day to be kept. Then said the other, Nicanor, and I also am mighty upon earth, and I command to take arms and to do the king's business. Yet he obtained not to have his wicked will done. Right? So again, with authority and power is pride, and you get puffed up. So that's what he says. I command and I do this, I take up arms. When you do these things and you win wars and you see bloodshed and a person die at your whim and you continue to get honored, this is the mentality of what sort of people do. It becomes insatiable, right? You can see it from the lower level, like a police officer. They get the badge and then they have power. Get on the ground, right? Get over here, right? They can turn their siren on and race through traffic. Everybody else got to pull over. Over time, that starts to build up if you don't have a good spirit in you to humble yourself. And they take advantage of it. And now when they walk through the areas, they feel like, they're untouchable. They got the protection of the force, right? The blue shield. And that's just in that level. There's in all different areas and pockets that same type spirit that festers and builds up, right? Now, then imagine, I'm looking at even just within our people. Imagine the heathens that now have that spirit. This is their kingdom, right? Imagine that. That's where you see all the Karens and all of them, really coming out now because their power is starting to dwindle a bit. So now they're really showing their true skin of the authority that they think they demand, the entitlement, right? Chest puffed out, and now they coming through places saying all kind of things. Go home. What the hell? You ain't even home. What? You can't tell them nothing. You can't think. They don't think of these things because they believe that they own everything.
It doesn't work out. You got to pull the same cards as before. In their little social circles, they kind of get laughed at. Like, oh my God, black card didn't work.
Right. Right. Yeah. As they say, when those things happen, say they're gonna call 911 and then they come out and they realize that no, we're not taking him to jail today, right? As they say in today's, it's scary times. it's scary time, right? For them when they consider it, right? So they turn it up the heat because they know they got a short time. Time is, their power is starting to dwindle. Verse 6. So Nicanor, in exceeding pride and haughtiness, determined to set up a public monument of his victory over Judas and them that were with him. You think about that pride. You know how Esau, you go through all the major cities, there's always a statue of something somewhere. There's a statue of this guy, he went to war, this general did this and did that. And normally those statues and things be erected after the fact, right? You didn't even think about it when you're in the midst of it. This guy is thinking about that before he even engaged in a conflict. That's how prideful he was. When I'm done with this, they're going to make a statue of me right there. Make sure they got my good side too. Right over there. Damn. That's why a certain individual like this and all others like it, you always want to see the victory over an individual like that, right? You want to be like Smokey and Friday, the first one. We leaned over Debo and you got knocked. You want to be there to do that to an individual like that, right? Just to kind of like really give it to him. And that's the whole spirit that's in Isaiah the 14th chapter, right? When it talks about, Lucifer and, look how you've fallen, right? And the other nations are going to be doing it. That's that same type spirit. You want to be able to go look at them and say, yo, look at you. You was on top of the world. What happened, right? You want to be there to get the last laugh, as we will. That's why I told you in Revelation 13:9, as far as for he that leadeth in the captivity, he that killed with the sword. The last part says, here is the patience and faith of the saints. If you be patient, you continue in the faith, you will be able to be there to do that. To have that opportunity to stand and do that with your peers. But if you don't have patience, you take matters into your own hands, you don't have the faith, you go out there and you start dealing with all different kind of other ideologies or different philosophies you think that's going to get us over, you're not going to be there, right? Verse 8, it's a lot. Verse 7, but Maccabeus had ever showed confidence the Lord would help him. Wherefore he exhorted his people not to fear the coming of the heathen against them, but to remember the help which in former times they had received from heaven, and now to expect the victory and aid which should come unto them from the Almighty. And so comforting them out of the law and the prophets, and with all putting them in mind of battles that they won afore, he made them more cheerful. So that's why when you read the scripture, it talks about the law and the prophets, right? It's not just speaking about thou shalt not this, thou shalt not. No, you're reading history. He's going into the Tanakh, the Torah, right? That's what it's talking about, the law and the prophets. He's going into that, reading about those different moments in time when we was about to go to war or we went to war and the Most High intervened. It wasn't just a thou shalt not eat swine flesh. It was no. These guys came and the Lord sent the angel and destroyed. Y'all remember that? Do you remember that, brother? Somebody let him, learn him, get him up on speed on how our power works. That's why you continuously read, so you can have the faith when you are in those moments. You can have that spirit in the right time. So when these individuals fell, that's why Mattathias knew that Judas would have this spirit. He was the right one to put them in spirit. You need a person like that, right? Everybody has their own gifts. Everyone has their own talent. This was Judas's, to be the right man, a Levite, right? He wasn't a Judite. He wasn't a Benjamite, because you always look at the other tribes to be the ones that's going out there and warring. You look at the priests, because you look at today's priests, Reverend Johnson and bishops such and such. They look all effeminate, docile, and everything else. That's not how the priests operate in the role. This whole book is written about, or the 2 books are written about the priests taking charge, going out to war, fighting the good fight, killing righteously, right? That's what we're saying here. So it's a different type spirit to have the right man lead the charge that's in tune with the Lord. It's a beautiful thing. Not for his own agenda, right? Not for filthy lucre that we see some of our leaders do today. They won't show up unless they're getting paid, right? They only showing up unless they're getting paid, right? You got to talk to my bookie, my agent, my handler, right? Let me see if I got, other engagements, right? You be saying Reverend Al, he's doing his thing, right? But he's getting paid for these events. He's getting paid for these things. All of them. But And not to say that, what's his name, Reverend Benjamin Crump, like every time he goes after somebody who, gets killed, that they're getting paid for it. But the thinking is that it's a photo op. It's an opportunity, right? When we go out and we do what we do, the teaching, this here, giving you this knowledge, free. It wasn't given to me by charge or fee. I didn't come and say, yeah, I done got my money up. I need that breakdown in Daniels. How much is that? Right? No, that's not how it operates. Right? This is top knowledge. You're not getting this at Harvard. Harvard ain't got nothing on this knowledge. In truth, we got to think of it that way. This is top knowledge. Treat it as such. Be thankful that the Lord got you getting these breakdowns. You understand it, because these guys don't have it. Your LeBrons and your Oprahs, and I don't care who they are. Your top science. What's that guy who's the astrologist? Judas brother, I think he is. Yes. Them, him, all of them. They don't have this. You can sit in the circle with them with this knowledge on circles around them. Trust and have faith that that's the truth. Be thankful for the Most High, or Yahweh Shai, that we can see these things clearly. Let's read on. Verse 9. And so comforting them out of the law with the prophet and the prophets, and withal putting them in mind of the battles that they have won afore, he made them more cheerful. And when he had stirred up their minds, he gave them their charge, showing them therewithal the falsehood of the heathen and the breach of oaths. So that's also what we do, right? We go into Psalms 83, right? We go on all of these different things and pull out of the scriptures how the Lord shows us the falsehoods of the heathen, how they are enemies, how they are in conspiracy, how they are confederate against them. So that's what Judas did. Showed them therewith the falsehood of the heathen, how they are breaking up truths and oaths, right? You can go back in history, this history, and see everyone who they had alignment with. What was their downfall? What happened? What treachery came from there? How did it come that way? Showing the breach of oaths, right? Spirit is here, man. This is a beautiful thing. If we keep on point with it, we can see everything clear and be on guard for the smallest things that may come, that Satan may use, for the guy at the corner store, supervisor that's just like, regular. Like, there's all different type of ways and how the spirit on the left-hand side moves for us to get our guards down and forget this power that we have. Verse 11. Thus he armed every one of them, not so much with defensive shields and spears, as with comfortable and good words. And beside that, he told them a dream worthy to be believed, as if it had been so indeed, which did not a little rejoice them. Right? So it's a lot. Like we read, I read in First Maccabeus, I think it was the 5th chapter. Actually the 4th chapter, where it talked about them going out to war and they didn't put to mind weapons, right? It just means that they didn't rely or put confidence in the weapons that they had. It's the same thing here, right? It says, thus he armed every one of them, not so much with defense of shields and spears. Though they had shields and spears, that's not how they armed themselves. It was with this. That's how they were armed. It says that he gave them this dream that they should now use this to encourage themselves with. Verse 12. And this was his vision, that Onias, who had been high priest, right? So here's another man that was a high priest, Onias, right? So we read about or read about Alchemist, who was an high priest, Jason, who was fighting for it. But there are or was some righteous priests that was there. Onias was one of them. It says, who had been a high priest and a virtuous and a good man, reverent in conversation, gentle in condition, well spoken also, and exercised a child in all points of virtue, holding up his hands, prayed for the whole body of the Jews, right? So this goes in line with what we read in Second Thessalonians. I'm sorry, First Thessalonians, the second chapter, how a righteous man, a person who was honorable, supposed to be unblameable, right? Looked upon in the right manner by the church. That was Onias, especially as a high priest, right? It says, this done in like manner, there appeared a man with gray hairs and exceeding glorious, who was of a wonderful and excellent majesty. Then Onias answered, saying, this is a lover of the brethren, who prayeth much for the people and for the holy city, to wit, Jeremiah, the prophet of God. So in this dream, Onias is now seeing this man gray haired, seeing that is Jeremiah, the prophet that we read about in the Tanakh or the Old Testament, right? Now, Jeremiah is a figure, a righteous individual, right? That the Lord had as a man of God to go out and teach and warn the children of Israel at that time before he was going into the Babylonian captivity. So he was already an honorable ancestor of ours. But in his dream, he's now being made as a figure to do something. Verse 15, whereupon Jeremiah, holding forth his right hand, gave to Judas a sword of gold, and in giving it spake thus, take this holy sword, a gift from God, with the which thou shalt wound the adversaries, right? So that was supposed to be symbolic of the Most High anointing Judas to be the captain of the host, right? So when we read back in First Maccabeus, the third chapter, one of the first wars that Judas went out and fought was with Apollonius, right? And he took Apollonius' sword, and therewith he continued to fight and beat the nations, right? He won several wars with that sword. So now this is almost symbolic of the Lord now saying, it's not the same sword, right? It's not, this is in the dream, the golden sword that came to Judas, just to say that, listen, this guy is the guy, right? That now he's the one I've chosen and selected, that he's going to go out there and lead the nation. You know, sometimes Israel always wants to have some sort of a sign to inspire us, right? To say, hey, we put our all behind you, Judas. Wow, that happened? Yo, that's on another level. You know what? Tell us where to go. That's what we wanted to do, is inspire and put some courageousness in the people.
Yeah, this is also a great example too. To quench that spirit, want to summon the dead. You see that in ancient times, you can see it now resurface in different pop culture stuff. Right? This whole thing of the necromancy out there. And it makes you think of King Saul again, where you see this is the way to not go about it, right? When the home turns, you're on the left hand side, where you follow both righteousness. They'll be the one to manifest to whoever it may be. An angel is one of our forefathers who may be to give you the right way to go. As a motivation, it's on the left hand side. Our people are heathen, both then and now, who want to summon the dead, get excited into future events.
Fine. So we have verse 17. It says, thus being well comforted by the words of Judas, which were very good, and able to stir them up to valor and to encourage the hearts of the young men, they determined not to pitch camp, but to courageously set upon them and manfully try the matter by conflict, because the city and the sanctuary and the temple were in danger. So after that, they said, listen, we're ready to fight. Let's go, right? So they said that we're not even going to wait. We're going to go and do and engage in the matter by conflict. We're not going to talk this one out. What they try to do. We're not talk. We're going to get into a conflict. Let's go fight. So they coming, right? Because everything was in jeopardy right now. Verse 18. For the care that they took for their wives and their children, their brethren and kinsfolk, was in least account with them. But the greatest and principal fear was for the holy temple, because Nicanor had made an oath that he was going to destroy it, right? After he got the victory, he was going to come and take out. Now, remember, this was like the temple was like our conduit between us and the Most High, because that's where we went and made offerings. If we sinned, if we wanted to give peace offerings to the Lord, that's what we did that to the priest, right? So now if that's taken out of the way, how will we do it? That was the thinking back then. Now, that generation didn't realize and understand what we know now through the Spirit, right? It had to play itself out to where now when we get in the New Testament in 1 Corinthians, the 3rd chapter and the 16th verse, we the temple, right? Now we're the ones, even if the temple not there, we still have a form of worship. We sacrifice ourselves, not the animal. But at that time, they had to have that thinking in order to go and fight against the enemy, right? So they weren't wrong in their thinking because that was going on back then. They did not have that understanding yet. Verse 19, also, they that were in the city took not the least care, being troubled for the conflict abroad. And now, as all looked what should be the trial, and the enemies were already come near, and the army was set in array, and the beasts conveniently placed, and the horsemen set in wings. So it's like when you see in the movies or a thing, everybody's in battle array. They standing on one side, another standing on the other side, and they looking at each other, right? This wasn't what they normally do. Like, they send one person out, another person come out, and they go have a little talk, and they go back. Nah, this wasn't that. Israel knew, listen, we about to go fight. Forget the talking, we about to go and take charge, right? But everybody's in battle array. Verse 21. Maccabeus, seeing the coming of the multitude and the diverse preparations of armor and the fierceness of the beasts. Remember, Nicanor was a master of elephants, so he had a good group of them that's coming, right? It says, stretched out his hand toward heaven and called upon Yahweh that worketh wonders, knowing that victory cometh not by arms, but even as it seemeth good to him, he giveth it to such as are worthy. Therefore, in his prayer, he said after this manner, O Lord, thou didst send thine angel in the time of Hezekiah, really Hezekiah, king of Judea, when you read it in the Old Testament, and didst slay in the house of Sennacherib 184,500, right? So this is what we were talking about in verse 9, where it talks about he read in the law and the prophets as far as for the battles that they won, right? Now he's giving a specific one during the time of Hezekiah, when the Most High came and helped defeat the Assyrians at that time. Let me read this real quick because it kind of parallels the same spirit that's in Nicanor was in these heathen back then. Go to 2nd Chronicles. 2nd Chronicles. Chapter 32. And I'm going to read from 15 down to 21. Second Chronicles chapter 15. Salak. 2nd Chronicles chapter 32 and verse 15. It says, now therefore let not Hezekiah deceive you, nor persuade you on this manner, neither yet believe him. For no God of any nation or kingdom was able to deliver his people out of mine hand, and out of these hand of my fathers. How much less shall your God deliver you out of mine hand? So that same spirit that Nicanor had, what God is it that commanded the Sabbath day to be kept in reverence, right? That same spirit is now back here during this time, right? Thinking that no nation can deliver themselves out of the hand of their power. Verse 16. And his servant spake yet more against the Lord God and against his servant Hezekiah. He wrote also letters to rail on the Lord God of Israel and to speak against him, saying, as the gods of the nations of other lands have not delivered their people out of mine hand, so shall not the God of Hezekiah deliver his people out of mine hand. Verse 18. Then they cried with a loud voice in the Jews' speech unto the people of Jerusalem that were on the wall to affright them and to trouble them, that they might take the city. And they spake against the God of Jerusalem as against the gods of the people of the earth, which were the work of the hands of man. And for this cause, Hezekiah the king and the prophet Isaiah, the son of Amos, prayed and cried to heaven. So that's always, remnants of testimony where you see, whereas we're about to engage in some massacre or we're about to engage in the war, we always pray to the Most High first, right? We don't get into it on our own. We pray to the Lord first. And that's what Hezekiah and the prophet Isaiah did. Verse 21, and the Lord sent an angel which cut off all the mighty men of valor and the leaders and captains in the camp of the king of Assyria. So he returned with shame of his face to his own land. And when he was come into the house of his God, they that came forth of his own bowels slew him there with the sword, right? So the Lord destroyed out that whole army, or a good portion of the army. This king of Assyria now left, came back to his own city, came back to his own palace. Now his own son, it tells you in 1 Kings, his 2 sons came in and murdered him, right? This guy was making mockery of the Most High God. You think the Lord is going to let that just slide? You being a heathen, you being an enemy to him? Some form of justice was going to be done. What if we did that? What if an Israelite went and blasphemed or made mockery of the Most High? You think the Lord would just allow that to just slide? No. What do you think he's going to do to the heathen, right? And that may happen times and times over. The Most High can bring that guy back in the reincarnation and continue to jack him up because that spirit is wretched. Same thing with Nicanor that we read now. So this is what Judas was referencing when we read this in 2 Maccabeus, the 15th chapter. Because said, if it be possible, Most High send an angel back again and get these guys out of here. We got elephants and all this stuff. Get them out of here. So now back in 2 Maccabees 15 and verse 23 now. Wherefore now also, O Lord of heaven, send a good angel before us for a fear and a dread unto them. And through the might of thine arm, let those be stricken with terror and come against the holy people to blaspheme. And he ended thus, right? So that's the prayer that he sent up, that the Lord will put a spirit of fear in the heathen, like it talks about in Deuteronomy 2 and 24 and 25. The Lord will send that spirit of fear that they can't even stand up against you. Or he could send an angel and he destroys them. Or he can give you the spirit of might that you can take out maybe that 5 times, 10 times more than what that within your own camp. The Lord can do it any kind of way, right? He can get us the victory any kind of way that he chooses. Verse 25. Then Nicanor and they that were with him came forward with trumpets and songs, right? So it says Nicanor and them had a band within the army coming with trumpets and songs, singing. We also see this that Israel did the same thing, right? We had trumpets. We had the priests blowing the trumpets and going as we were going to war, right? So this wasn't just pompous, but in their case, I would say it was pompous because he had already started thinking about statues that's going to be erected in his name, right? We did it in praise and honor to the Lord, but they come in with songs and trumpets. Verse 26. But Judas and his company encountered the enemies with invocation and prayer, so that fighting with their hands and praying unto God with their hearts, they slew no less than 35,000 men. For through the appearance of God, they were greatly cheered, right? So like we read before, the Lord will at times manifest his presence, right? The Lord will manifest his presence to now get us a victory. And that's what happened. So you had men that was out there fighting, and then you had others that was praying for the victory at the same time. Because we know that prayer, that the Most High is our power source, right? Verse 28, Now, when the battle was done, returning again with joy, they knew that Nicanor lay dead in his harness. Then they made a great shout and a noise, praising the Almighty in their own language, Lashuan Kodash, the Holy Tongue, Hebrew, right? So again, that's why we give honor to Judas, the day of Judas Maccabeus, right? But we also are cheering and thankful for the destruction and downfall of the enemy, right? That's what they did. When they realized Nicanor was dead, they praised the Almighty and they cheered, rejoicing loudly, right? Because of the pomp and the pride of what he did to Razzies and what he said he would do to the temple. Verse 30. And Judas, who was ever the chief defender of the citizens, both in body and mind, and who was continued his love toward his countrymen all his life, commanded to strike off Nicanor's head and his hand with his shoulder and bring them to Jerusalem, right? Because with his mouth, he spoke blasphemies, and with his right hand, he made an oath that he was going to destroy the temple. So he had him cut off his head, cut off his shoulder with his arm, right? Because that was now going to be used as a tool. Verse 31. So when he was there and had called them of his nation together and set the priests before the altar, he sent for them that were of the tower and showed them vile Nicanor's head and the hand of that blasphemer, which with proud brags he had stretched out against the holy temple of the Almighty. Right? Yo, go call him here. All of y'all, come. Look, this is what happens when you talk about our God. This is what happens when you blaspheme the Most High God. Look, it's him right here. That's what he did. Look, give me his arm. Give me his arm. Grab his arm and bring him forth. Remember, he was pointing and going up. Yeah, look at it. It's off his body. That's what happens when you mess with us in the Most High. It's coming, right? Vengeance is always going to come, but we wait upon the Lord to bring us that vengeance, bring us that victory. Verse 33, and when he had cut out the tongue of that ungodly Nicanor, he commanded that they should give it by pieces unto the fowls and hang up the reward of his madness before the temple. Man, take a knife. Can you imagine that? You know, somebody grab his head. This is what happens when you in war, right? When you in that, because right now you look like, yeah, now he touching the head. He wouldn't somebody put their finger on. Yeah, that's what happens when you get that spirit. You know, I remember I don't know who it was years ago. This was a long time ago, and the brother was saying, he was like, we're not in that spirit right now, right? We don't have that spirit in us to be in warlike mind state like how they are right here, right? The Lord gonna have to put that spirit on us. He's gonna have to give us his spirit, as he says in the scriptures, to get on that level, to get in that mindset. We're grooming ourselves as we read the scriptures, as we go out there and we deal with different spirits, right? You know, some people come up to us and they send out all kind of slangs and blasphemy and say this and they say that, or we deal with it in the world, right? It's kind of getting us there. But in that time, that moment, the Most High gonna have to put the spirit in some of us. He's gonna have to elevate it, right? To get to that level that we can go out there and be used as the vessel.
Yeah, and the difference, because it can be confusing for the outside looking in. Come from a spirit of justice, as opposed to a spirit of just pure vengeance, anger.
Mm-hmm.
Right? The revenge and anger has to be coupled with the justice.
Right.
It has to be.
Con.
That's what we always talk about, where we know how to pay them back a certain way, but the Most High, he's the one who's going to pay them back the best way, because we might be offended and a heathen, like all my brothers, for 2 or 3 things they may have done to us. And because of that, that's how we want to carry forward our fruit. Whereas the Most High, he knows that soul in and out, just like we were before. He can pay them back in a way we never do.
Right.
As far as our understanding.
Right. Especially that we don't go out there with unbridled anger, right? Meaning that, you know, you can go and if you had the opportunity, if somebody was in the world had the opportunity to go and get justice, it wouldn't be with righteous, like a righteous justice or righteous anger. It was kind of just be wilding out, like just running out there, just doing any old kind of thing, right? Doing things outside of the guidelines of how the Lord wants us to go, like you said, and do justice according to his will, right? Verse 34. So every man prays toward the heaven, the glorious Lord, saying, blessed be he that have kept his own place undefiled. He hanged also Nicanor's head upon the tower, an evident and manifest sign unto all of the help of the Lord. So they hang it up on the tower somewhere so that everybody can see. They go, that guy, and they can look up as they walk by, heathen and all, and they say, damn, they killed Nicanor too. Killed all of them, man. Try for all of them, right? These damn Jews, thorn in our side. That's what it was meant for, to be a deterrent. Verse 36, and they ordained all with a common decree in no case to let that day pass without solemnity, but to celebrate the 13th day of the 12th month, which is in the Syrian tongue called Adar, the day before Mordecai's day, right? Mordecai's day, or Purim, right? So the day before Purim or the day before Mordecai's day, we now are honoring the destruction of Nicanor, or we should say the day of Judas, giving him the salute. Verse 38, and if I have done well and is fitting the story, it is that which I desired, but if slenderly and meanly, it is that which I could unattain to, right? So the author of this second book, or, I don't know if you're going to, both books of Maccabees, tried his best to give a version, an abridged version of what happened during the times of the Maccabees, specifically with the Jews, but with Israel, and this family of Mattathias and his sons, as well as the Assyrians and all who were like-minded that joined themselves to them. He tried his best to give us the account of what happened. Verse 39, for as it is hurtful to drink wine or water alone, and as wine mingled with the water is pleasant and delighteth the taste, even so speech finely framed delighteth the ears of them that read the story, and here shall be the end, right? So this is the account that the Lord has put the spirit in the authors of these two books to allow us to have the record for us to know what happened back then, right? Like you read in the New Testament that it's the Most High chose holy men to do this, to put these words in his book. Imagine, leave it up to the nations, they would erase all this account. We wouldn't know what happened back then, right? We wouldn't know what really was going on with the Greeks or with the Romans, right? We wouldn't know, certain aspects of the Babylonian captivity and how the Lord came, or the Assyrian captivity, how the Yahushua came during the Babylonian captivity with Daniel and them and saved them, right? How the Lord took the end during the Assyrian captivity. The Lord gave the record for us to have an ability to recount what really happened in the past, right? To give the real story, right? Go to the book of 1 Peter. And get a few more scriptures and then we'll close it out. 1 Peter chapter 5. Because again, we got to just keep ourselves, encourage ourselves, discipline ourselves to stay on point mentally and spiritually. It's easy to get complacent, relax, guard down, succumb, right? Get comfortable, but we gotta stay on point. In 1 Peter 5 and 8, it says, be sober, be vigilant, right? When you think of a vigilante, the vigilante is always running about to do something. But in this case, it means to be fervent and being aware and alert of everything that's going on. Why? It says because your adversary is a foe of your enemy, the devil, right? Whether it's a spiritual entity, Satan, or his angels or his minions that he has in the earth. And we know one of them is a top nation in the earth, Edom, right? It says, as a roaring lion walketh about, seeking whom he may devour, right? So the adversary has done a lot and is still doing a lot, continuing to do a lot, will continue tomorrow to do all kind of things. But we have to stay vigilant to keep ourselves unspotted so that the Lord doesn't allow them or use them to punish or judge us, right? Like how some of our other brothers and sisters are going through out there in society, right? So our opportunity, another day of Judas or destruction of Nicanor, our opportunity of another time where Haman and the rest of the nations like that is going to happen during the time of Purim is going to fall. Our opportunity of what happened to the Assyrians or any other period of time is still coming. Revelations chapter 6. Revelation chapter 6. And verse 10. Revelation chapter 6 and 10. It says, and they cried with a loud voice, saying, so like I'm going to read from 9. Revelation 6 and 9. And when he had opened the 5th seal, I saw under the altar of the souls of them that were slain for the word of God and for the testimony which they held. Right? He had a lot of people during the time of the Maccabees that died for the testimony of the Most High. Even today, 1,000 years, same thing. Right? It says, and they cried with a loud voice, saying, how long, O Lord, holy and true, dost thou not judge and avenge our blood on them that dwell on the earth? So when people read the book of Revelations, their knowledge is closed off. They don't understand what's coming, because here it tells you that the righteous of the Lord is still waiting on vengeance for what had been done to them. Not that everything is just going to be peace and harmony. Everything's going to come together. Everybody's going to be one on a mountaintop somewhere. No. Judgment is coming. So we got to be in like mind in order to prepare ourselves for this, right? You got to have, like Judas, a manly type spirit, right? You got to get that courageousness in you. Get First Maccabees chapter 4. First Maccabees chapter 4. And verse 35. First Maccabees chapter 4 and verse 35. It says, now when Lysias saw his army put to flight and the manliness of Judas's soldiers, how they were ready either to live or die valiantly. That's where we got to get to a certain point where we're ready to go all out, live or die valiantly, right? That's where the men need to be on a certain level at a certain point in time. The Lord is raising up soldiers like Judas had that was ready to die for righteousness. Right? And not just the men alone. Because what is that movie 300? In the movie 300, what was the dude's name? No, the leader, I forgot. He had his wife, and he was about to go out to war, and his wife then was like, "No, don't go out to war. No, you can't leave. Get somebody else to go." No, his wife knew that he had a job to do. That he was, Leonidas, yeah, that he was going to go out and fight manfully for the people, for their realm, right? And she was somewhat proud of it. She had some concern that he would probably make it back, but she knew he had to go out there and do that.
I think she had to watch for it. I guess it was a cultural. She said, "Come back with your shield of honor."
Exactly, right? So not only the men had to have, the manliness like Judas and to have that courageousness, even the women. Matter of fact, go to 2 Maccabees chapter 7. 2 Maccabees chapter 7. And verse 20. Second Maccabees chapter 7 and verse 20. It says, but the mother was marvelous above all and worthy of honorable memory. For when she saw her 7 sons slain within the space of one day, she bare it with a good courage because of the hope that she had in the Lord. Imagine one child, 7 in one day, all got murdered. And she stomached it because of what they stood for, what they were standing for. Verse 21, yeah, she exhorted every one of them in her own language, filled with courageous spirits, and stirring up her womanish thoughts with a manly stomach. She said unto them, right? It didn't mean she did 10,000 planks like, man. No, it's talking about she had that courageousness. She still had care for her son, but her womanish thoughts, but she had that stomach like a man. She can deal with it. She could bear it. She wasn't like how women are today, where, at the sight of something that just crumble. Oh my God. No, she didn't do that. So the men and the women get that spirit in them in these last days and stand up for righteousness and virtue. Most High is going to deliver us, right? The Most High is going to now give us the victory in the end. Last one, Revelations 19. Revelations 19. And 1. Revelations 19 and 1. It says, and after these things, I heard a great voice of much people in heaven saying, Hallelujah, salvation and glory and honor and power unto the Lord our power. For true and righteous are his judgments. For he have judged the great whore which did corrupt the earth with her fornication, and have avenged the blood of his servants at her hand. Right? So that's the judgment. That's the next victory that we're going to get. That he's going to manifest his presence again for the last time in this fashion. He's never going to have to do that again to come and fight and defend for the nation of Israel. It's the last time. But he's coming to do it to redeem us from our foster system right now, right? To get us out of the abuse and the mistreatment, the molestation, the beatings, the murders, robbery, all that's happened. We're waiting for our real biological father to come back and get us, take us home, but now judge the system for what they did, right? That's what the Most High and Yahushua has given us, the promise and hope of their coming. All right. So I'll close out that unless anybody else got any comments or precepts they want to bring out before we close out.
I was gonna say what you just said about the woman in Maccabeus. What's interesting, what's marvelous about what they did, the action, is what most people struggle with. They cannot see, but they see beyond what most people cannot see. They see the hope clearly as they understand the scriptures, they understand the Most High, but most people cannot understand it. They cannot see it. So for them to come out, it's unreal to come out to do such act. It has to be something that you see. You see it, the hope. They believe the hope, see it
clearly, but you cannot see it.
Mm-hmm.
That's where sometimes it's hard for people. They don't believe the scriptures. Like I said, First Thessalonians, we think the Most High every day. They think the Most High every day because when they receive the word, they receive it not as men, they receive it as the word of the Most High, and as of the word of Yahweh. So that's how they receive it, and that's how they, it was seen in them through their action.
Mm-hmm.
That's what the example.
Okay.
When Ohio saw it, so this Jeremiah, he saw a vision of Jeremiah.
It's a dream. Right, it's a dream.
He didn't actually.
Gun.
Oh, you said something like that.
It's like a good countdown to like people in the world summon the dead, try to get some information from somebody. But the Most High can act his own way to bring his vision.
Right. They want to force it.
Right.
So they do it on that.
Mm-hmm.
I was comparing to Saul did sin.
Right. Yeah, we don't want to be Saul. Right. Calling someone indoor. Right. Nah.
Let me read that scripture I just quoted in First Thessalonians.
All right.
It's First Thessalonians chapter 2 and verse 13. And it reads, "For this cause also think we God without ceasing, because when ye received the word of God, which ye heard of us, you received it not as the word of men, but as it is in truth. The word of God is actually working also in you that believe." So that right here, they keep taking the Most High people down. You see that it's not only them that see what the Most High showed them, but they were able to show it to other people and other people see it. So it's a beautiful thing for them to see other people see it. It's like when you do something is good for you, you want your brother to have it as well.
Mm-hmm.
They were, joyous when they receive it. Now they can hope that's lie ahead that most people struggle to see.
Okay. So I'm gonna say happy day, Judas, or Shar Yawum Yahawada. Right. Judas is the same thing as Judah, right? Like how you've seen it in Old Testament, New Testament, Elijah, Elias, right? Judah, Judas, right? It's the same name. So we'll say Yahawada, Ashar Yawum Yahawada. And again, hallelujah for the destruction of Nicanor, to the Most High, King of Kings, right? The invisible power, the deliverer, the defender, that gives us the victory. So again, always all praise, honor, and glory to the Most High, Yahweh Shah, right? Mashiach Yahweh Shah. So Most High's will, everybody enjoys the remainder of this day. We normally always say, this is like a solemn day that we come in and we honor, we break bread on this day. It is a 7th-day Sabbath, but in honor of the day, we're going to feast and eat. Kahan Nabiyah likes to bring out, these days when we talk about Day of Judas, Purim, they're not the traditional Sabbaths, because you don't read about the sacrifices and things as you do with other days that the priests would do. Like when we read about the Feast of Rededication of the altar, it says that they kept it like the Feast of Tabernacle, right? According to its rites and the palms and everything we read in Leviticus 23. So that's why that's different. But the other ones are days of some that we acknowledge, to never forget what they did, right? To come together and talk about these stories and consider certain things, and also consider ourselves, right? We're now the new last saviors in this day before the true savior comes, right? It's like how Judas had Assyrians that also fought with him. We're like those guys. We're the new carpenters, like you read it in the Old Testament, that now come out and help teach and further the word. All right.
Also, it's a blessing in this time now that we keep it a piece of Day of Judas. And when you read in Maccabeus, where
around that time also they, were taking things dedicated to the temple of Bacchus. And you see the same spirit that was back then, it's the same spirit that is today. Around this time, it's like carnival. All around carnival. And the carnival is pretty much it's pretty much the other nations that used to, usher and, kick out the spirit of winter, and usher in the spirit is pretty much, I mean, bringing the spirit of spring, right? And then the the Egyptians adopted it. When Alexander went to conquer, around that area, then they adopted it. Then the Romans came and adopted it. So around this time, they dedicated that to Bacchus. Now the word changed, right? In today's time, now they call it carnival, but back then it was bacchanal, right? And at the time, the word now is carnival. So it's the same rededication that was happening in the past to, evil spirits. It's the same, in God, it's the same thing that's happening now. So around this time now, we keep in the Judas, but the world is celebrating, carnival, which is, dedicated after the box. So it's pretty much no new thing under the sun. It's the same spirit. We vibe and doing the same thing, but thank God now we keep doing the same. The feast of, Day of Judas, around the same thing.
Right. It's good. It's a beautiful thing to have feast days and solemn days and things to counterbalance the wicked days that we used to be a part of. That we can come and keep these things in righteousness, opposed to being a part of that. All types of idolatry and promiscuity, all kind of stuff that goes on. That you give yourself to, your mind, your spirit, your body, into those things, and you make yourself a sacrifice for that, as opposed to sacrifice for these things. Right? So again, it's always being thankful, not for this getting tangible things, but just being thankful, just to be away from that. Right? At least have knowledge though. I need to keep myself away from those things. As tempting as it may seem, or people try to lure me, I'm happy that I'm here and I can know this, and I have a way of, arming myself and defending myself against those darts and those temptations and things that's coming.
Like our people doing it, they don't ignorant, they don't even know what they're doing, but they pretty much, offering things and doing feasts to evil gods and the past, but they didn't even know that what they're doing.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I heard that on YouTube. It's like, was it Monday, Tuesday, from Mardi Gras?
All that.
Yeah, it's all the same thing. Like they call it different name, Carnival, Mardi Gras over in Europe. They call it fashion. It's all different kind of names. But same thing.
I'm surprised this became this early. I thought it came late.
Yeah. All right. Again, so with that, again, Ashar, Yawum, Yahawada, happy day of Judas. Also, Ashar Shabbat, happy Sabbath. This is a feast, a solemn feast weekend. So between today or tonight, tomorrow night, when we start the first day of Purim, and then the second night, Sunday night, for the second day of Purim. It's all a celebration of the destruction of our enemies and saluting and honoring those individuals that were used as vessels to give us the glory, right? To give us the victory at that time. All right. Again, Shah, Yawum Yahawada, stay tuned for closing prayers. Always thank you, Most High, for those brothers and sisters that fought courageously in that day. All right. Lord's will, we'll be using the same vessels in these days. All right. Shalom. Barakati, how about
Shah Asherana Lanawa Paya Kappa Wada Aman, La Yahweh Bahasham, Yahweh Shah Ath Yasha Allah. English translation, blessed are you, Yahweh, Yahweh Shah, that gives us the fruit of the vine, that you so be it, Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh Shah, with Israel. I Madra Jerusalem, stand and face Jerusalem for the closing prayers. Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Babakushah, Shammai, Lanawa, Aitha, Yum Yun, Aitha, Shalat, Mayaka Allah, Baha Allahayim, Tazwadakim, La, Shemaiah, Barak, Rapah, Magun, Wahakasya, Banya, Yasha Allah, Washalat, Lanawa, Rabiam, Kakama, Rabiam, Da'ith, Rabiam, Bayana, Rabiam, Sabalonwa, Rabiam, number one, Rabiam, Aqua, Rabiam, Ahabiam, Rabiam, Haganah, Rachanaya, Rasalat, Ko, Katayemnawa, Lahaakim, Wayasha'ala, Thamyad, Baiwalam, Basham, Yahawashan, Tawada, Aman. Yahweh in the name of Yahushai, bless, please listen to us right now. Send Michael and the righteous powers or angels to watch over, bless, heal, protect, and make strong the children of Israel. And send to us much wisdom, much knowledge, much understanding, much patience, much faith, much brotherhood, much love, much spiritual protection. And forgive us and forgive all our sins for the brothers and sisters and Israel always and forever. In the name of Yahweh Shai, thank you. So be it. Blessing for the food. First. Yahweh, God of all, Bahasham, Adawanya, Yahweh Shai, Babakushah, Barak, Ma'akal, Yanawa, Shatayawa, Yanawa, Yayan, Yanawa, Lakam, Yanawa, Shakarai, Yanawa, Zakad, Shah, Hayawam, Yahawada, Bahasham, Yahawashai, Tawada, Aman. Four corners prayer. Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahawashai, Barak Nawa, Wayasha'ala, Wabat Yasapayim. Shema, Yasha'ala, Yahweh, Yahweh, English translation. Yahweh, in the name of Yahweh, bless us and Israel in the house of schools. And Deuteronomy 6:4, here is our power, one power. Then that, then you say, Happy Day of Judas. Enjoy the day, Israel. Lord's will, we're here to see each other with a Sabbath service this morning. Shalom.
Shalom.